You are listening to the Obstructed View Red Sox podcast, presented by Beyond the Monster.
Welcome back, everybody, to a brand new episode of the Obstructed View Red Sox podcast, and happy Thanksgiving. We're coming at you the day before Turkey Day, and we got some topics to go over, specifically the Red Sox hiring Andrew Bailey officially to be the new pitching coach. He was introduced to the media on Tuesday night on Zoom. But before we get into Andrew Bailey, I'm going to introduce... This is supposed to be our Friendsgiving episode, and we've got no friends, so it's just Jamie and I. We are going to bring you this special No Friendsgiving episode of the Obstructed View Red Sox podcast. Our co-hosts are currently MIA. Jamie, how are we doing on this fine, cold day before Thanksgiving?
We're doing good. I mean, I think our co-hosts are missing out a little bit, but we still got a power team going. I'm just happy to be talking about baseball the day before I eat enough food to probably go into a food coma by this time on Turkey Day.
Yeah, no, tomorrow is typically turkey. Well, that's what I'm gonna have. I mean, people might have ham, or they might do the turducken, or I don't know, whatever. But yeah, turkey stuffing. Really kind of just looking forward to the basics tomorrow. Red Sox, though, did hire Andrew Bailey, so that's official. He was announced to the media, like I said a few minutes ago, on Tuesday night. Few takeaways from that press conference. One was his pitching philosophy, and he said to the media that strikes are everything. And my first reaction when I read the quotes on Twitter was no shit. Yes, strikes are everything in baseball. But if you start to peel back the onion a little bit to that comment, Andrew Bailey's staff in the time that he was with the Giants was sixth in baseball with a 3.80 ERA. They had the fewest most home runs allowed with 525, and that was from 2020 to 2023. Also the fewest walks in the majors with 403, which reflects the sentiment of strikes are everything. So while I initially said, yeah, no shit, and I'm sure others probably did too, he's backed that up with his staff. They don't walk anybody. And that was something that, last season when the Red Sox went and they signed a handful of these pitchers, specifically Corey Kluber, who never walked anybody, seemed to walk the absolute world before he went on to the injured list. So it was good to kind of hear this from Bailey. He is taking over a Red Sox team that was ranked 21st in team ERA, 4.52 last season. Opponents at 256 last year against them, which was 24th in baseball. And the Red Sox gave up 208 home runs. So strikes are everything. And just kind of want to, again, your quick thoughts on at least that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I feel like one thing that you saw a lot last year is, especially with Bayo and some of the other young guys, I feel like their starts got cut a little short because their pitch counts were high due to them walking guys or kind of having long counts. So to have a guy like Bailey have that be a point of emphasis is good to hear. I feel like it's one of those things, like you said, that's obvious that strikes are important. But especially when it comes to pitching deep into games, that becomes even more key to not running up the pitch count and being at 80 pitches after 4 innings.
The strikes are important piece too. I don't want to go and say that wasn't important to the Red Sox because at Polar Park, in the clubhouse, the Red Sox basically kind of had their internal Bible of what they believed in that was on this bulletin board. And one of the main things was the emphasis of throwing first pitch strikes and attacking the strike zone. But the difference between putting something on a bulletin board and the actual execution was completely different. And that happened way too much at the major league level. You saw that too at times in the minor league level. An example is Brian Mata. it was early on in the season before he went on the IL and missed the time that he did this year. I've never seen a professional pitcher hit 4 out of 5 batters in 1 inning and also walk somebody. They have a lot of pitchers that have really good stuff. It's about what can they do to reel that in. And that's what Bailey's going to be tasked with. I mean, he's only been on the job now for 24 hours, but that he's been doing stuff behind the scenes, which is evident because he reached out to Chris Sale, which we'll get into in a little while. But this is a good move. Bailey coming here is a good move because when's the last time that Red Sox fans, there's been excitement over a hire of a pitching coach. Obviously, It helps to be pitched in this market before, but to me, in my opinion, I know that he wanted to get to the East Coast. Giants are crazy to let him go. With numbers like that, he worked with Kevin Gausman, who went from the Orioles to the Giants, turning himself into an ace. He gets paid. He worked with Logan Webb. There was another arm too, Carlos Rodon. When Rodon was out in San Francisco too, it just seems like, again, it's almost like certain stars align. You got Breslow pitching, basically guru, I guess, in the game. Now you're bringing in this guy. It's starting to align together, and hopefully now we can see these pieces come together because he did bring up Brian Bayo in the press conference, and he thinks that Brian Bayo can go from where he's at to someone that can be a frontline starter. And I'm happy that, again, another person's recognizing that from the Red Sox perspective, but I don't want them to rush that.
Yeah. I think one thing that stood out to me about the press conference too was when he was asked, he referred to the position, he said it's not something you want to turn down, or that it was a rare opportunity, which I feel like was refreshing to hear, especially after during the first weeks of the GM search. A lot of talk was about how it wasn't the most desirable position. They ended up with a great hire in Breslow, but it was nice to hear Bailey kind of say that this would be a position that, especially from a pitching coach point of view, would be hard to turn down.
Yeah, and then a few other pieces of that press conference, that I thought was important, that were takeaways. And we might do another article. I mean, we wrote, I think, 4 articles on the Andrew Bailey press conference at Beyond the Monster Substack. But this here, that players are never finished products, whether you're a top end starter or you're down. And on the option train, if we're ever a little bit complacent in that, negativity can creep in and poor performance. And I got to tell you, it did feel like that at times. And it's actually kind of felt that way sometimes over the last couple of years, that there's been sometimes this like complacent, stagnant, I feel they've been complacent when it comes to Chris Sale. And I say that in the respect of not the talent, because when healthy, he is a talented baseball player. He's a great pitcher. He's not the same arm that he used to be. We can use semantics and hash out whether you think that he's a 2, 3, or wherever he's at now. But when I say complacent, I think the front office was complacent because they relied so much on Chris Sale the last handful of seasons that they took money that they should have put into the rotation, allocated it elsewhere. And for the most part, the results were in the pudding. This team was not a competitive baseball team. So I'm hoping that line there, and being, if we're ever a little bit complacent in that, negativity can creep in poor performance. I hope that he means that too in just the overall global aspect of the Red Sox, because that, to me, that line sums up the last couple of years. And look, like Chaim Bloom, he was very, like I said, very good to me in the time that I've gotten to know him. But that line there by Andrew Bailey, to me, sums up the Red Sox the last handful of seasons: complacency, poor performance. And I know he's talking about the pitchers, but I hope that he brought that up in his interviews and meetings with this organization, and that was basically his mission statement. Because to me, that resounded to me, besides the strikes for everything, which again, no shit.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I feel like especially kind of this past year when injuries hit, it didn't really seem like they had enough depth to really cover it, which obviously, you'd expect to get a lot more out of Kluber. You couldn't have predicted the craziness, I guess, in terms of how Chris Sale got hurt. But it does kind of feel like the past couple of years that it's kind of been like patching the holes from the pitching point of view. in a market like Boston, especially when you're supposed to be competitive, every year. Like you said, that complacency of just hoping it's going to work out and kind of plugging in pieces, that's not, I feel like that's just not always a great situation to be in.
Well, I know you just said that you can't go and predict Chris Sale and injuries, but I think he's like the poster child of guarantees when it comes to that, because it has been so profound. And whether it's freak injuries or not, a line drive off of your hand, that's a freak injury. Breaking your wrist, riding a bike. Again, I don't know how that happens, but breaking your rib before spring training, throwing so hard. My thing would be, and we'll segue now into the Andrew Bailey piece with Chris Sale. Bailey reached out to Chris Sale during the interview process, basically, when he was essentially a free agent pitching coach, and talked with Sale. And I like that because, one, it allows Bailey to kind of get the pulse from, even though he's not the ace, he still kind of is the leader of the rotation, and I think you can there's a difference between being an ace and being the leader, I guess, in this specific sense. The Red Sox need to get that ace, and I think that they're going to do that. But, his quote in the presser was, "I'm looking forward to grow that relationship and be alongside him and for a really long time. He's been around the game of baseball and has seen a lot to multiple levels. And I think our ability to have honest conversations, tell each other yes, tell each other no, and operate in a professional manner is great." I read that as Andrew Bailey is getting a head start and saying, I know you want to go balls to the wall, but we need to reel it back a little bit. You can't be full throttle from the rip. And we need to figure out and manage you in a way that we can get you out of a full season. So where we need to tell each other yes and tell each other no. I don't think enough people have told Chris Sale no with the Red Sox organization the last handful of seasons. Maybe in the respect of, we're going to have Corey Kluber open up on opening day. Maybe in that case, you told him no, that could have been a yes. But I think there's been way too much placating to Chris Sale because of the name cachet of Chris Sale versus what he's been on the baseball field, lack thereof, the last couple of seasons. I'm sure he's probably talked to some other people, but the only other area of this quote too that gives me some cause for concern is that I would be around him for a long period of time. I hope that doesn't mean an extension. I don't think they should extend Chris Sale after this season. I would move on. But if the money's right, I guess, again, you can read into anything you want, but your assessment, thoughts on Bailey and Sale and their little chit chat, gabbing like a bunch of gals.
I think chit chat with a bunch of gals is perfect. I think it's good to see him already reaching out, not wasting any time, having, formal relationships with the staff. I feel like that's a good point, that they do not kind of keep it slow with him and not go full throttle right off the bat. But I think just from my point of view, it's good to see that Bailey is already, reaching out to the staff, not wasting any time getting acquainted with these pitchers, especially a guy like Sale that, as long as he's healthy, should, in theory, play a big piece next year. And having that relationship with Bailey is going to be huge.
Yeah. Again, hopefully, and I'm sure that the Red Sox and Bailey and Breslow and Cora have already had these conversations. And again, I know he's been on the job for a day, but let's be real here. In the grand scheme of things, they've had these conversations. I think they know where they want to go with the direction of Chris Sale. I just want the Red Sox to do what's right for the Red Sox and what's right for Chris Sale. So it's like a 1A and a 1B. What's right for Chris Sale, if he's healthy, let's not put the pressure on him to be at the top of the rotation. Go get guys to be those horses. Let Chris Sale be 5 or 6 inning Chris Sale. Get the occasional 7 out of him. He doesn't need to go 7 and, in 100 every start. Would that be great? Sure. But let's play the long game. Let's play, I want to have Chris Sale healthy for an October run, not Chris Sale went down in June. He's going to rehab July, August, hopefully ramp it up in September. Then come. I don't want that anymore.
Yeah.
Hopefully Breslow, Bailey, Cora, and however else they're going to run this pitching operation. The management of Chris Sale, to me, for me, is one of the it needs to be a bigger storyline, and I hope it starts to become a bigger storyline in the coming weeks. I know right now everybody is laser focused on who are we going to sign, and I say we, but who are the Red Sox going to sign? What pitchers? Is it Yamamoto? Is it Montgomery? Is it Snell? Are we, are the Red Sox trading for Cease? Are they doing something that's a surprise and they acquire one of the Seattle young arms, or they give a call to the Marlins? Is Edward Cabrera one of those players? Those are all immediate storylines. But going into 2024, the health of Chris Sale and how you're going to manage Chris Sale and how that looks, to me, is a top 5 storyline that needs to start getting discussed.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I feel like for me, an ideal offseason would be they sign 2, whether it's through trade or free agency, they acquire 2 studs that you can put kind of 1 and 2. And then he can push Sale back further in the rotation to, like the number 3. I feel like that would be ideal, and that would kind of put them in the best position to succeed next year.
Agreed. Spent too much time on Chris Sale, so I'm gonna move on from that piece. Andrew Bailey went on and added that one of the things that made him and the Giants successful together was their work and how they worked collaboratively with one another to reach, obviously, the common goal. Common goal is to win a World Series. But, he was quoted in saying that I view ourselves as coaches, as consultants for the players. We're not to hide the ball or hide information, give them facts. We want them to know how the industry values them. We want them to maximize their earning potential. So I look at that, and you think about guys like Brian Bayo, who is, he's the talk of the town. Everybody wants him to be extended, and for good reason. I'm okay if the Red Sox don't extend Brian Bayo this winter. Maybe around spring training. Think about it too. Red Sox, they took care of Devers, pretty much once free agency was over. They did their business. That's, still could happen. But I would like to see 1 full year of Bailey and Bayo, what he's going to look like under this new pitching clinic program, whatever you want to call it. There's interest from Bayo to be here long term. I want to see how all this comes together this season, and then you can throw whatever you need to throw at Bayo, because presumably you would have gone out and gotten your 2 arms this year, so you don't need to worry about going to free agency and being like, oh man, I got to go and sign another arm again because this happened. You've gotten 2 of the arms. Yeah, you might tweak it and maybe go after player X and you sign him or whatever, but you can go into the offseason and being like, you know what, I'm going to attack it. We're going to get Bayo now extended next year because this is how he responded, away from the Dave Bush program and into the Bailey and Breslow, process.
Yeah, no, I agree. I feel like especially this year, Bayo showed a lot of good signs, but showed they still have some things to work on. I'm excited to see how Bailey, helps him take his game to the next level, which is I kind of agree that I'm not going to be like torn up if they don't give him an extension this spring training, if that waits another year. I'm just mostly excited.
Some people are going to be torn up. There are some folks that are going to be torn up by that. And it's just like, I know, like you want that news because you want to get that just out of the way. Cause there's that doubt and that fear that creeps up and being like, we went through this whole nonsense with Xander and this whole nonsense with Devers. I don't know about you, but it feels different for me right now when it comes to the Red Sox and the front office. There's a lot more optimism. I don't want to get sidetracked, but carry on.
Yeah. No, I disagree with that. I would want to see Bailey and Bayo work together for at least 1 year before they hand out that extension, because it's probably going to be 7-ish. We're probably talking 7-8 years. Probably between, I would probably ballpark it right now between 125-ish, 140 range If I feel like if they do go like a 7-8 year,
I don't know. I don't know if I would give Brian Bayo, who is with the sample size that we've seen, 7 years, because I am a little concerned about, he did have that forearm piece. I wonder if the Red Sox would do, I mean, I guess 7 would make sense, but I wonder if the Sox would do a less term in the meets money, but yeah, I guess 7 would make sense. Because I'm trying to think off the top of my head without looking it up, how many years of control that he still has. So let's say it's 5. So you're buying.
Yeah, it might kind of more.
2. So yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. I was thinking more in terms of, whatever he had left, whether it be 4 or 5, then you tack on like a 2, 3, extra years to that.
Yeah. No, I guess that makes sense. I'm gonna pull it up right now. I mean, because I guess the same thing you could say too, because you're gonna with what's his face there? He plays first base.
Oh, Cassis.
Yeah, Tristan Casas. He doesn't become a free agent until 2029. So you have
like 5.
So you have, so you got 4. Yeah. So honestly, I would say 6 years at that point. I would offer a 6-year deal.
Yeah.
But 6, 7, it's semantics. I think it comes down to what does the money look like at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like that's another reason why I know people want the extension to happen, happen as soon as possible. But kind of like we just alluded to, with them being under contract till 2029, it's not like something that they like need to do, in the coming months. Like you can wait, you can wait a little bit on that.
True. I would. That's just me. I would wait. I don't think there's an immediate rush. For me, the rush is go out, let's get those arms, get a second baseman, probably add another lefty or 2 to the bullpen. And then once you've addressed that, I would really put a premium and emphasis on that depth that you're going to need in the upper levels, because outside of Brendan Bernardino and Joe Jakes, the Red Sox those are the only 2 lefties on the 40-man roster. You're really thin overall. One of the guys that they had down in Worcester last year, and Brendan Nail, is not expected back. He's a minor league free agent. Fully expect that he's going to end up with another organization. It's very rare that you have guys that spend 5, 6, 7 years in one org and then come back. That are just minor leaguers for that perspective. So I don't think he'll be back. So, and I know a lot of times fans, they'll scoff a little bit at the minor league moves, but once you've taken care of business at that major league level, really shifting and adding that proper depth and getting those guys that are going to need to come up in the pinch, when you lose, someone for 2 weeks, that's going to go on the IL for whatever reason. They got COVID, or, they pulled a hamstring, or something, something stupid happens. It's good to have that proper depth. So you're not having Bobby Dahlbeck play shortstop at any capacity or circumstance at the big league level. Is a nice tool to have in your back pocket. Yes, it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't want that happening for the Red Sox. The Red Sox continue to develop, continue to preach the versatility, but that versatility and that option really needs to be, that thinking needs to go by the wayside to an extent. Yeah, and stop trying to be cute with some of the stuff. To continue on with Mr. Bailey, the other big thing that came out of that press conference was the fact that Andrew Bailey and Craig Breslow talked about this exact scenario that just happened. Breslow and him were in with together with the Red Sox, and we're in the bullpen discussing that, what it'd be like one day to maybe be a general manager. And Bailey was like, yeah, I'd love to be your pitching coach or some sort of coach. And all of a sudden now that actually truly happened. It's crazy how certain things like that align for you, and, where the stars align and all that shit, I guess. But, the fact that actually happened, you know what I mean? The fact that he quoted saying that life's too short to turn down opportunities like this. I think sitting in the bullpen with Craig over the parts of 5 seasons, 3 with Oakland, 2 in Boston, his teammates, and talking about how he was going to be a GM. And I was like, well, I'll be the bullpen coach, pitching coach, manager, whatever you want. Boom, that happened. Eerie, but also, in at the end of the day, those are some cool stories. Not to sound corny or cliche, you can be romantic about baseball, but that I think falls under that.
Yeah. No, I agree. I feel like they're both kind of perfect for the roles they've taken on with the Red Sox. I feel like Bailey was one of the best pitching coach options out there that the Sox could have possibly hired, and Breslow's obviously well reviewed in baseball. He's one of the smartest people in the game. So, it just worked out perfectly, and I feel like the Red Sox are in very good hands with them both in the positions that they're in.
Yeah, I think Andrew Bailey is a slam dunk hire for the Red Sox. I think so far they've done well this offseason. Andrew Bailey, pitching coach, Craig Breslow. I know, there's other names that people would have preferred, but there's an old saying that sometimes the best trades you make are the ones that you don't make. There's also a reason why a lot of these people, these executives, they bowed out. They really, either they weren't interested or whatever it might be. At one point, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again, at one point, Theo Epstein was not Theo Epstein. He had it, he had his hand in a lot of things with the Padres before he came over to the Red Sox. Craig Breslow had his hand in things before he came over from the Cubs. I'm not saying that he's going to be Theo Epstein. He hasn't won anything yet, but let's give him the opportunity to go ahead and try to be successful. With that, if you have not checked out the To The Show We Go baseball podcast that we have, Joe Jacques was on the podcast a few episodes ago, and he was asked about Craig Breslow, and Jacques said that he thinks it's awesome, and that, I'm going to quote him here, maybe he will feel a little bit more of a connection to me. He seems like a great hire, and it comes across that he knows what he's talking about. He's also a Northeast guy, which doesn't hurt. What I like about that quote, and he's not the only player that has come out and talked about this publicly, these players are respecting the fact that he's played the game. Chaim did not play the game. Chaim Bloom is your prototypical nerd. He's your guy that's sitting in front of the computer and he's playing, fantasy baseball and using fan graphs to figure this whole thing out, where, yeah, Breslow is a nerd. He straight out told us in that press conference, but in this respect, he's played the game. He's going to have the respect of players. It feels like he's going to have the pulse of what's going on is going to be a little more aligned to what the players are going to be looking for. Meaning, are you in it at the All-Star break and the trade deadline? And when you need a reliever, are you going to go get the reliever?
Yeah. I mean, that was kind of one of the reasons why I love the Breslow hire. I feel like he can relate not only to the players, but also playing in Boston and the expectations that come with that, especially Bailey as well. They both know that it's a very demanding market. I feel like with Breslow, like you said, he's very analytical, but you also get the other half where he's been in this situation before. He knows what it takes to win a championship. In Boston, being in the clubhouse, he knows how much scrutiny, every move he makes is going to be on, whether it's the fans or the media. I feel like kind of just like Bloom, that's something that, didn't have that, that's, I feel like one thing that makes Breslow unique and kind of suited for this situation. He knows what he's getting into in Boston. He's dealt with these fans before. So, he knows the high standard that he's not only going to be held to by ownership, but also by the fan base.
Yes. To also, to piggyback to Jake's also talked about how he's excited that Bailey's another Northeast guy. That Jake's works out with Anthony DeScalfini in the offseason, and he played under Bailey with the Giants. DeScalfini talked very highly of him. So again, these connections that the players are it feels like the players are at ease, that it's almost like, for me, they've taken a step back and said, okay, the ownership group is attacking this in a different way. We're getting guys that used to play, guys that are well respected throughout the game. I'm not saying the Bloom wasn't, but I think so far these little W's that the Red Sox have made are going a long way with these players. And again, they're not going to go publicly out and say, "Oh, this move sucks." But when you're sitting and you're listening to these players and you're recording with them on a Zoom or a StreamYard, and I'm looking at their faces when they're talking about these players. I don't sense that there's any sort of BS. I sense that it's genuine when they're talking about these new hires. We did briefly touch upon in our last episode, which was Yamamoto posted. Yamamoto, again, was posted, and we talked about that in our previous episode. You can check that out over on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. But there was a little bit of an update with the free agent Japanese right-hander, and that his agent, Joel Wolf, spoke with Yahoo Sports in Japan and reaffirmed a column that Ken Rosenthal put out last month, but he has no preference on where he plays. I know a lot of people have been speculating that he's going to want to play on the West Coast. Yamamoto just wants to play in the majors. He has zero preference on where he goes. There's about 15 teams that have shown interest in the free agent, and that he's open and okay with being on a team with Japanese players, which, when you start to think about that, with the Red Sox, with Yoshida, you do have the Mets with Senga. With that being said, the Ken Rosenthal article that had it where he talked about how he was okay with playing with Japanese players, that was a Mets article, and really makes me say that I think the Mets are serious contenders for him. John Heyman was on a Bleacher Report Twitter feed thing today, and he talked about how he thinks that the Dodgers could go out and sign Shohei Ohtani and Yamamoto. The Mariners went and made a splash, and they moved more money off the books. Are the Mariners looking to free up cash and maybe get in on the sweepstakes and add him? I think the Yamamoto dynamic is going to be super interesting. The other piece to pull out of it, though, is he's in no hurry to sign. He doesn't intend to go to the meetings down in Nashville, and he's going to sign after those meetings. So we're going to have another 14 days of this Yamamoto drama, so to speak. Where he's gonna go, where he's whatever. The only thing that I really pull out of all this was that the preference piece was finally addressed to say, hey, look, baseball, he'll play anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, that was something that stood out to me too. I wasn't kind of surprised by that. I think it does help the Red Sox in the sense that he said, he doesn't mind playing with Japanese players. We know the Red Sox need, top of an arm in the rotation. And he's obviously one of the better options out there, opposed to, probably Montgomery just now would probably be some of the other guys. But if you want a real true ace, someone who's really going to make headlines, it's probably him. So that's just me interesting to see that develop. Especially with it probably being a more open pool with those Carlins than probably some people consider. And it's just going to be fascinating to see that develop. Especially as other free agents start signing. We already saw Nola, go back to the Phillies. It'll be interesting to see more chips fall into place and how that affects, big arms like him in the coming weeks.
Yeah. So that was really our Yamamoto update. I think we'll probably do more Yamamoto updates on these podcasts until he signs, because I'm sure other little nuggets are going to drop unless he signs before that date. I would be surprised, but you never know. I mean, money talks at the end of the day. All right, we're gonna jump into our last segment here on the episode, and it's going to be, you have an option right now, and to choose out of these three sluggers that I'm going to name. And first off, this was in an article that was on masslive.com by Christopher Smith. basically just, power bats, sluggers that could fit the Red Sox in some capacity. I'm not going to name Justin Turner. Okay. We're going to exclude him from this list. Your options to choose from are Jorge Soler, Rhys Hoskins, or Lourdes Gurriel Jr. You have your option to choose one of those three batters to come in and be on the Red Sox. We'll call it 2-3-year deal, whatever it might be. Of those three, who makes the most sense for you? And do you even think the Red Sox should try to get any of those three players?
That's actually a very good question. I mean, I'd probably go with probably Soler. I think he gives you a big impact bat. We've seen his power in Miami, wherever he's been. So I'd probably go with him. I mean, Hoskins is another interesting candidate just because he will probably be a guy that will sign a 1-year prove it type of deal. If he gets back to what he was before his injury with the Phillies that kept him out last year, that's a 15 to 20 homer guy to put in your lineup. So he'll be an interesting piece. But of those three, I'd probably go with Soler just because of his power. I think he hits like 280 at finally in his career, if I'm not mistaken. I think he has done pretty well. So, he could be a pretty good fit in the lineup, especially if you trade, Verdugo, depending on how that outfield plays out in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, I mean, Soler hit 36 bombs last year in 137 games. He's going to strike out a ton. He does walk, though. He walked 11.4% of the time. He's going to strike out a bajillion times at the plate. But the Red Sox, their offense was potent last year, and we know that. They are in need of a right-handed bat, but that was even before, in my opinion, Justin Turner becoming a free agent. The Red Sox need someone else in that lineup that can mash. So Devers can get some pressure taken off of him. Now, Soler of those three, to me, is that guy. Out of those three players, I would still rather see the Red Sox, if they're going to try to do something wild and crazy, to me, go get Tatis. And that's a young bat that you can just boom with Devers.
Yeah.
Power, him peppering the monster. I think it would be I think it would be orgasmic. But with the respect of Soler, you're going to be able to get some outfield from him, but he's probably going to have to play left field. He's probably not your right fielder, and we know how they feel about that right field, center field. It's basically two center fielders. I do like Gurriel, though. But Gurriel, to me, is next level down. He's not really that threat. I think he's a good, probably sixth batter on a really good loaded lineup from top to bottom. I don't have the concerns of Hoskins coming off the ACL. I think that's going to be fine. I just think it's more of the fact that he can just DH and play first. And I think the Red Sox are going to value that versatility where, can you play some other spots? But wow, what should I cough on there? I think Soler of those three is the right option.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I feel like, kind of like you said, you would definitely take a lot of protection off of Devers. He's got that, regardless of his strikeouts, you can count on for at least 25, 30 homers. And I would be interested to see what his doubles total is, after a year of using the Green Monster.
Yeah. I think that, Soler would hit some massive bombs over the monster. There'll be a lot of clips and highlights that Twitter fans are going to get excited about. Comes down to money. What does that look like? What's the deal look like? Is he willing to take another deal similar like he had in Miami where, it's a 4-year deal, but there's opt-outs depending on performance and things along those lines. Just, something to think about, because the Red Sox they're going to need to address that power bat piece at some point. And Soler is I think out of those three is a name to keep an eye on. Just not really high level there, just more of us kind of spitballing. So that is our No Friendsgiving episode, since again our additional co-host did not make it on this episode.
I don't want a lot for Christmas. There is just one thing I need. I don't care about the presents underneath the Christmas tree. I just want you for my own, more than you could ever know. Make my wish come true.